Greetings everyone, this is Jeff Wilkerson, Professor of Physics at Luther College, bringing you the next in our series of what to look for in the night sky. We're talking about the week of September 19th, 2022 this time. So we will enter into astronomical fall here and think about autumn now. So we got a lot of different things to look at, not one big concept, not one big theme like we often have, but multiple little things we're going to look at. And when you see that I have the board divided like this, what that means is that these things aren't related to one another. Look at this as a separate entity from this, as a separate entity from this, as a separate entity from this. It's not one big map of the sky. We have to be looking at different parts of the sky at different times. This is definitely more hodgepodgery than we often have. We're going to start with Saturn. Those of you who've been watching these videos know that we've been talking about this pattern for a long, long time. Saturn has been sitting very near these two stars for a very long time. That's Nashira and that's Deneb Algadi in Capricornus, and Saturn sits here and makes a little triangle with those two medium bright stars right now. As you go out tonight, any night this week, so you go out any night in the week of the 19th, or the week after, or the week after, or the week after, and you look south, Saturn will be probably the brightest object in the region, but it's going to be noticeably east of south for me. I go outside, let's say 9 o'clock. So when I go outside at 9 p.m. right now, here in Iowa, United States, then I'm going to see Saturn not having made it to the meridian, not having made it to due south right now, but it'll be the brightest object there. It'll be closer to south than it is to the eastern horizon by a good bit. So that's what we're looking at in that region. We're going to return to this. We're not done talking about Saturn for this week. We're going to come back to it. Now, also when we go outside just at dark, let's say 9 o'clock for me, I'm going to look to the east and to the southeast and big, bright Jupiter. Nothing's going to be brighter than Jupiter in that region of the sky. Jupiter's coming up. So you go out, you look, you see the brightest object coming up over the southeastern horizon. You got Jupiter. Sitting above Jupiter is the Great Square of Pegasus. The Great Square of Pegasus really is, for me, the marker of fall, the fall sky. So this is telling me it's fall. It's dark. I see the Great Square of Pegasus climbing into the sky. It looks more like a diamond the way it's oriented right now with the point Markov. The bottom star here pointed toward the horizon more down here. Hyades makes this side, Alpheratz and Algenib make the other side. Now this is a big square, a big empty square, so you should be able to recognize this more easily than some other patterns maybe, because there's nothing inside there. And when you look to the east right now, just after dark, you see this big diamond shape, this big square shape with nothing inside of it, and the square pops out. You say, that's the square. Now that star, Alpheratz, is technically in Andromeda. Andromeda is riding on the back of the winged horse Pegasus, but we count that as part of this Great Square of Pegasus. As you've been watching these videos, you know that many of our star names that we use are translated from the Arabic in English, that we use in English. And so Alpheratz, when we translate from the Arabic, al is the. And so Alpheratz is the horse's navel, and Algenib is the horse's side, the side. And so we get these from Alan's star name, as always. If you've been watching these videos, and I'm sure you have, probably repeatedly, then you know we refer to Alan's star names to get our star names like that and the history of them just a little bit. And that's what we learn about those. So that's great. If you don't know the Great Square of Pegasus right now, it's a great time to go out and find it. Early fall is just a perfect time to be watching the Great Square of Pegasus. You got Jupiter sitting right underneath there. Beautiful in the evening sky just after dark. Now we're going to translate to the morning sky. We're going to transfer our focus to what's happening after midnight. And so on the evening of the 19th, but more the morning of the 20th, okay? So we're talking about Tuesday morning the 20th. The moon will be a crescent moon, waning crescent moon, about a quarter full, and it's going to be in Gemini, sitting just below the pair of Castor and Pollux, just below Pollux, two bright stars. So this allows us to identify Gemini and to just enjoy that beautiful grouping, Castor, Pollux, the moon. One day later, the moon will have waned to about 20% full, and it will have moved over right into the heart of Cancer. Cancer is a really faint constellation, hard to see the pattern of Cancer, the asterism of Cancer. Those stars are so faint. But the moon will be sitting in there, and it will be sitting right above a cluster known as the Beehive Cluster in there. Big swarm of stars. Now, often the moon can help us find background objects that we don't know about, we haven't been able to see before, but it also washes them out and makes it hard to see. These stars are big and bright enough And the moon, being 20% full, is not so bright that you should be able to see the Beehive Cluster, and I recommend it highly. Now, to see the moon at 20% full, we're talking about pretty early in the morning, and this is probably something, I don't know how you go about life, but for me, this is something that's going to be easier to get up in the morning to see rather than to stay up. So this is something at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's going to be a great, great thing to see. And probably you can see it a little bit earlier than that, but not a lot earlier than that. And right up until dawn, you'll be able to see it. The Beehive Cluster is going to pop in binoculars. If you got a pair of binoculars and you start at the moon and you slide down to the Beehive Cluster, great, great thing to see. So that's what we want to look at with the moon this week. The morning of the 20th, the morning of the 21st, 4 o'clock in the morning is a good time, 5 o'clock in the morning. Now, it's staying dark later for me, so 5 o'clock in the morning would be a great time to do this. Probably could do this a little bit earlier, especially this one. So that's for you to go out and see then this week ahead. The other thing we want to look at then, early in the morning like that, we're up, it's 4 o'clock, it's 5 o'clock in the morning, and we see the V of the Hyades in Taurus. That bright orange star is Aldebaran. Again, we got an owl, the eye of the bull. So we've got the eye of the bull right here is Aldebaran. Above there's another bright orange red. This is an orange-red star, another bright orange-red object. That's Mars. Okay, so we got Mars. We looked at Mars a couple of weeks ago too. But Mars is sitting right there, and if we follow this out, we can follow the V out a long ways to subtract a couple of stars out this direction. M1 is a supernova remnant. It's a star that blew up in the year 1054, and that's the remains of that supernova. If you've got a chance to, if you have a small telescope, go ahead and start seeing if you can find M1 sitting just above this star at the extension of the V of the Hyades out this direction in Taurus. It's a little faint fuzzy patch, a little bit hard, but it's fun to try. But what we really want to focus on now is to say, let's start observing Mars this week. And just this week, you're going to notice that Mars is moving toward M1, toward this star in the Hyades. And you watch it for the next couple of weeks, and its motion is going to be obvious. It's moving so fast enough that you'll be able to see Mars tracking against this V of the Hyades and these other stars in Taurus. Go out, find Mars, find the stars of Taurus, make a sketch, and sketch where these things are, and go back 2 or 3 days later, go back 4 or 5 days later, or 6 or 7 days later. You know what? If your cell phone has a camera that has a night mode on it where you can take pictures at night, take a picture of the region and save those pictures over the next few weeks. And every time it's clear, every time you're out in the morning, take a picture of this region of the sky and watch Mars tracking toward M1. Now, what Mars is doing is what we call normal prograde motion. It's moving easterly against the background stars. That's what planets do most of the time. This is what we're talking about in the astronomy class right now. Every now and then, planets will back up and go into retrograde motion and move westerly against the background stars. And that's, Copernicus, the big deal that Copernicus did was to say, hey, that comes from us catching up and passing them. When you pass a car on the highway, it looks momentarily like it's moving backward against the background hills. And that's what Copernicus said was going on with these outer planets when we pass them. Mars is not doing that right now. Mars is in prograde motion, moving easterly. But Saturn is in retrograde motion. I told you we'd come back to Saturn. I wasn't lying. And so Saturn is actually moving westerly right now. The thing with Saturn is, it's far enough away from us, its motion is subtle, and you have to really work at that. So I'm going to recommend, I'd love to give you long-term observing projects. So over the next few weeks, take pictures of this region of the sky with your cell phone, or sketch it, and watch Mars tracking here, and you'll see it's obvious, I think. You'll say, oh yeah, Mars is moving, no doubt about it. Come back over here and see Saturn, and it's going to be a lot harder. If you take a cell phone picture each week, or make a sketch each week for the next several months, you're going to see something interesting. You're going to see this gap between Saturn and Nashira, and Saturn and Deneb Al-Gadi grow as Saturn moves in a retrograde fashion. But it's going to stop, and it's going to turn around, and it's going to come back and start prograde motion again. And as it does so, as we get deep into November, okay, a couple of months from now, it will be right back where it is now. So Saturn, this will be a fun thing. If you have a series of pictures, this is going to be fantastic for you to look at, is to say, watch the gap Saturn makes with these two stars in Capricorn is grow and then shrink back, and in a couple of months Saturn's going to be sitting right back where it is now, and you will have observed a retrograde loop. And that will, if you were modeling the geometry of the solar system, that'd be the data you need to help you do it. And so this is great stuff to do. Lots of things to look at this week. Lots of fun stuff to go out. I hope you have clear skies and a chance to go out and observe some of these things. As always, thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll have something new and interesting for you next week.